Welcome to our feature interview here on Emory and Henry Reports. As I mentioned before, I'm Daron Vaught, and with me today, an Emory community activist named Rees Shearer. And Rees, first off, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me, Daron.
Yeah, and Rees, you were recently arrested in Washington, D.C. for protesting. Is that correct?
Right, in front of the White House. We were protesting the Keystone XL pipeline, which would bring oil from the tar sands of Canada down through the central United States and to refineries on the Gulf Coast in Texas.
So you were like right there, right in front of the White House. How many activists were there with you?
About 70, and among them were Bill McKibben, who has spoken here at Emory and Henry about 3 or 4 years ago. He's really quite a leader in the environmental movement, particularly focusing on greenhouse gas issues and climate change. He is founder of 350.org.
Okay, so these environmental issues, obviously something that are things that are very important to you. Is this something that you've done before?
I've never been arrested before. In risking arrest, we're talking about an issue that must be pretty serious, because that isn't something that you do very often, and I haven't done it in 65 years. So the question comes down to, what kind of future are we going to have? Are we going to have a future that's dictated by greed, the greed of the energy companies? Last quarter, ExxonMobil earned more money than any company in the history of money. And in order to be able to get our priorities right, we have to change the currency that we're operating in. And so our currency, as Bill McKibben described it that day, was our bodies. And we were the first of 2 weeks of protests where each day people lined up in front of that White House fence where you're not allowed to loiter, and were arrested. Only those on the first day were incarcerated, and I happened to be in that lucky group.
So is that something you guys were going for? Were you intentionally testing your limits by protesting right there?
We were risking arrest. We didn't know what the consequences of that arrest would be. Normally what's done, and what was done every other day that there were protesters there protesting the pipeline, was that they were given the opportunity to post bond, which was about $100, and then forfeit it, kind of like a speeding ticket. But in our case, the authorities decided to teach us a lesson and incarcerate us in the D.C. public jail in order to discourage future protesters, because they had heard that there were going to be 2 weeks of protests in front of the White House. So they thought if they could throw us in jail, it would pretty much turn the whole demonstration into a tailspin. But instead, when you incarcerate people like Bill McKibben, who's written numerous books and has well over 1 million readers, people pay attention. And so that's what happened. It actually broke into the media as a result of the fact that major leaders in the movement, in the environmental movement, like Gus Speth, who co-founded NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, and World Resources